On November 7, 2017, Sega and Sonic Team released the next mainline entry in the Sonic series, Sonic Forces. The anticipation was huge after the mixed reception of their previous entry, Sonic Lost World, which came out 4 years prior and was an exclusive to an underperforming and underrated console. And the poor reception of the spin-off that is Sonic Boom, with the poorly received Rise of Lyric and a TV show that was ready to release its final episodes. To the Sonic community, they were ready for a return to form in the series, and the reception was interesting. Not the reception anyone wanted, but it was still interesting. Also, JP, why are you making a video on a video game? Aren't you an art channel? Well, to that I say, what are video games if not another art medium? The topic of Sonic Forces is interesting. Through the production of the game, the anticipation and expectations that the game had to deal with, the response from the community before and after the game came out, and the impact this game had on the series and how this game is being viewed nowadays from both the fandom and Sega themselves. Also, here's an icebreaker that may make you guys hate me. I may have liked Sonic Forces. What? I may have liked Sonic Forces. What? I may have liked Sonic Forces, okay? Do I understand why this game was perceived the way it was? Yes. Do I agree with the critiques people have made? Yes. Do I understand why people hate, and I mean hate, this game? Yes, definitely, absolutely. But do I still like the game despite everything I have seen regarding this game's reception and reputation? Yes. I do want to make it clear that this video is not a defense on Forces. I will not deny the flaws of this game and what went wrong, but I won't deny that I also have a soft spot for this game and I'm willing to highlight what I liked about it. It was the first time I got to own an actual home console game of the series, and yeah, I did enjoy the game back when I played it at 12 years old, and now I'm going to revisit this game 8 years later and understand more about how this game was created and how it influenced the entire series through better or worse. This video is a safe spot for people who like, dislike, or just impartial to Forces. Whether you disliked or liked the game or felt impartial to it, this video is a safe spot for your opinions. Feel free to express your opinions in the comments, and heck, maybe subscribe while you're there. I also make comics on Instagram and Blue Sky, and now webtoons. If you need to save this video later, make sure you add to your watch later list. With that being said, it's time to look back on our time with the Resistance and revisit the events that nearly tore down the whole world. This is the retrospective of Sonic Forces. Let's take a trip back to the past so we can understand the story at Sega that led to the creation of the game. While this is a phrase a lot of people have heard and are tired of, I think it needs to be said again. But 2006's Sonic the Hedgehog was a very poorly received game at launch. I myself have never played this game in its full, so I cannot deliver any personal opinion, but I only speak in facts that yes, this game did leave an overall negative impact in the franchise, permanently. To the fanbase, the gaming community, and the general public, they never looked at this series the same way again. Despite selling well, this game's reception has overall made Sonic a punching bag. This made people turn on the entire franchise, ridiculing the games, while nowadays Sonic 06 hate is nowhere as strong as it used to be. In fact, many fans have gone on to praise aspects of the game, such as its story, dialogue, voice acting, and heck, even defend the whole game itself. Someone in particular even remastered the whole game, titled Project 06. Even if this series is in a better place, the damage Sonic 06 caused will leave deep scars in the franchise. But Sega still went on with the series. There were games that a lot of people enjoyed back then. Two of those games that people like to point out was 2010's Sonic Colors and 2011's Sonic Generations. And Sega definitely did take note of that down that road. Remembering Colors for the introduction of the Wisp, and remembering Generations for the introduction of classic Sonic. Now we move on to 2013 with the release of Sonic Lost World. a game that wasn't as well received nor well performed. I haven't played Sonic Lost World yet, although to this day fans are still split on that particular game. Although what didn't help with this game's performance was the fact that it was an exclusive to the underperforming Wii U. Although it would get a PC port 2 years later, it still wasn't considered a huge success. Now that Lost World was done, it was time to move on to the next game in the series. Although there was an iceberg they needed to go through, Sonic Team decided to spend the next year creating a brand new engine, which would be known as the Hedgehog Engine 2, an improved version of the original Hedgehog engine used for Unleashed, Colors, Generations, and Lost World. I guess it was a good time. I mean, they had a third-party team, Big Red Running, creating a spin-off of the franchise Sonic Boom, which never intended to replace the main series. It was just a sub-franchise that would take place in a new universe with comics, merchandise, a TV show, and lastly, a game. But unfortunately, that game would soon create more wounds in the franchise that still had the scars from Sonic 06. Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, released in late 2014, again exclusively for the Wii U, was met with terrible reception. The thing that screwed this game over was when Sega forced the developers to make the game exclusive to the Wii U, because the game ran on an engine that was never intended for the Wii U. So the time that would have been spent finishing the game was spent optimizing the game for the Wii U, and even then they didn't have the time to do that either. Regardless, the game failed, and that was a terrible start for the new sub-franchise that had planned merchandise, comics, and an ongoing TV show. So with all those expectations only to make zero profit, that really did a number on Sega. Sega's loss of profit within the Sonic franchise would have made an impact on the franchise. I want to address this because Sega is in a different place now than they were a decade ago. There are multiple factors, which is why their next project Sonic 2017, was released the way it was. Now let's move forward to the future. So what many people have said before within the 4-year gap between Lost World and Project 2017 was that 1 year was spent on the new engine and 2 more years were spent conceptualizing the game, which means there's only 1 year left to develop the game fans have anticipated for years. San Diego Comic-Con 2016, Sonic the Hedgehog would have a 25th anniversary event to celebrate the franchise and host 2 major announcements. That night came, and Sega would reveal one of their projects, one of them being the now beloved Sonic Mania, and the other being Project 2017. From the team that brought Sonic Colors and Generations, it showed this serious tone that hasn't been present in the series since, I want to say, Unleashed. The environment seems apocalyptic. The environment seems apocalyptic. I'm sorry. No, there's noise outside. Sonic will be going through his hardest adventure yet, and most interesting of all, the return of classic Sonic. The countdown was imminent for everyone. In 2017, we finally got news about the upcoming Sonic Forces, the game that Sonic fans have anticipated for a long time. Sega would share snippets of the main theme and the gameplay, and this is where the wars would begin. This game was criticized for being too linear, with nothing seeming to happen outside of simply pressing the boost button, and that was the modern Sonic segments. For the classic Sonic segment, there's criticism for the physics they use as well as the return of Green Hill Zone again, and the music people thought was a placeholder. There was also defenses towards some of the accusations, such as people referring to the modern Sonic level as the first level or the tutorial stage. People were worried that it seemed like there was nothing to do in terms of gameplay, and they were worried how the characters played, as well as the reuse of Green Hill Zone. And I will say, from a visual difference, Generations' take on Green Hill Zone blows Force's take. But that wasn't all from Sonic Team's sleeve. Yep, that's right. Series director Takashi Iizuka saw a large part of the Sonic community by making your own custom character in the campaign. A decision that had good merit to make a side of the fandom that loved making OCs feel seen and recognized. I will say, it does give this idea that Sega and Sonic Team do recognize their own community. Although that doesn't mean it'll lead to perfect results all the time. By the time of E3, we got to experience the full trailer. They showed more of the game, the gameplay, the bosses, the aesthetic, and some new CG cutscenes featuring enemies like Shadow, Metal Sonic, Zavok, Chaos. But there was one more reveal. Meet Infinite, a new character who will take the role as this game's special antagonist. Every day we get closer and closer to the holidays where this game would make its debut. Around that time, there was demos during that game. In fact, I almost had the opportunity to play a demo in San Diego Comic-Con 2017. Sega had a panel where you could either play Forces or Mania. What did I pick? Well, 11-year-old me actually didn't hear about Forces until the demo, but I heard about Mania, so I played that instead. But from what people heard, the reception of the demo did not seem well received. An important detail a lot of people mentioned is that they removed a staple in which you couldn't reclaim any rings you may have dropped from being attacked. As the day approached, skepticism was growing for the game only a matter of time before the full release. A game that was anticipated for 4 years, a game that followed the well-beloved Sonic Mania, a game that only had to sit next to other 2017 releases like Super Mario Odyssey. There was a lot of pressure for this game to land and hit. As the day approached, we kept getting teased more and more of the inevitable war. After some ads, some teasers, some promos, a digital comic, and finally, the day came. On November 7, 2017, Sonic Forces has officially launched into the world. Time to go through history again. I have replayed Sonic Forces, which, wow, it's been a while. Yeah. By the way, I never use these Joy-Con skins after 8 years. And I have the Switch 2 now, so like, I guess there's no point to me even having these. I even made a new avatar. He's cute, look at him. Love him. Now, what was the game like? So basically, the war began when Dr. Eggman made a speech about how much he resents Sonic and how he found a way to take him down once and for all, as we view his latest creation yet. We then cut to Sonic's stand Green Hill getting ruined by the environment getting turned to sand and Eggman's robots being everywhere, and with a alert from Tails that he needs him in the city. When he was at the city, Sonic finally met his match with the return of previous villains and the new Infinite. Sonic was taken down last and all hope was lost in the world. Eggman won, the world now was under his hands. The remaining cast of characters were now part of a resistance that was in its last hands. But not all hope is lost, as you the Rookie joins the resistance. You the Rookie impress everyone, and the embarrassed Sonic's alive. We find the death egg, yep, we save him. We become besties. We do our thing. We then run to classic Sonic. Oh, he's here, okay. And then he meets Tails, who was at a desperate time of need when he seems too scared to face chaos. They do their own thing. Yeah. You also see Shadow. The real Shadow, apparently the one at the beginning of the game was a fake. War, war, war! All of us grouped together to fight the Empire. We cook Infinite and tell him he got no homies. We gave Eggman amnesia. We won the war. Woo woo woo! So, are we just gonna ignore the fact that like a lot of people died? Like, we got a lot of funerals to attend. Played the game, and all I gotta say is, yeah, no, I still don't hate the game, like, at all. But I will say, yeah, this game does have issues. One of which is that a majority of the levels do not offer much interactivity outside of simply pressing the boost button or using the homing attack. There's just not much thought you need to put when playing any levels, really. This is a game you can play with your brain turned off, essentially, which I don't think was anywhere near the intention given the war story this game had. Not all levels were like this, and I will say something about the game I definitely like was the avatar creation. I made one to represent how I currently look since I made the last one I made was when I was 12. I made this one a wolf since there's no reptile options for our Forces avatar. What the heck, Sonic Team? It was fun picking my shoes. Like, is this what shoe shopping feels like? Yeah, I don't hate the game, but I do understand the flaw that is classic Sonic's physics. Like, they're really bad. Like, since he can jump, like, gravity doesn't exist. Like, he's on the moon all the time. I had the most fun when I'm either the Avatar or Sonic. Overall, this game story has a huge tell don't show problem. Because most of the events of the war are just being told through intercoms as opposed to like actual gameplay or things we can see through things we can see. Like, you can see lasers and warships, but most things just happen through audio. And you don't feel it happening through the gameplay most of the time. Yeah, the levels in this game are embarrassingly short, especially now I got to play games like Generations, Colors, Frontiers. And by the way, my brain was so used to Frontiers, I forgot that Forces doesn't accept rings for boosts. Yeah, I would say that this gameplay was very baby's first 3D Sonic game. And yeah, it was for me. Like, this was my first 3D Sonic game. But this is not the game that should have satisfied the mouths of many Sonic fans who have been waiting for the next mainline game for years. We should have gotten an evolution of generations with Forces, but instead we got a de-evolution. It did not take until Frontiers and Shadow Generations to get the series back on track. And despite all that, I didn't hate my time. Some could say I had fun. So yeah, Sonic Forces released, and what did the fandom think of it? Yeah, not good. Forces was a poorly received game through its bland gameplay that restricts the player's interactivity, a mid-story that wants to create dramatic stakes and moments without the proper build-up, the lack of unique locations, especially with these existing locations looking inferior to their previous versions, as well as not fitting the war theme. The music was well received despite a few misses. Together we could show the world what we could do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. I'm not kidding. I have listened to Fist Bump so many times I know the lyrics by heart. While I like Forces, I think I see why I don't despise this game as much as, well, most of the Sonic community, and its expectations this game had. Again, people waited for this game for 4 years, and while we had some games to play in the meantime, a majority of those were not well received. While we had the beloved Sonic Mania, a game that is still beloved even to this day, it was obviously not the main course everyone was waiting for, despite, again, Mania's amazing reputation. But for me, I didn't even know Forces existed until like 4 months before the game came out. I just thought, oh cool, new Sonic game, there's like one like every year, right? And also, this was like my first 3D Sonic game, so I really had no other 3D games to compare it to. And I think that's what hurt Forces the most. If it was released like 1 or 2 years after Lost World, and then proceeded with another Sonic game that came out like 1 or 2 years later, well, it would still not be so well received, but it wouldn't have soured the community as much as it did in reality. Forces not only had to face the expectations fans had for years, that the final product did not meet, but said final product had to be the most recent mainline Sonic game for 5 years. Yes, the community really did have to wait 5 years between Forces and Frontiers, plus a day extra. So yeah, this game kept getting beat down more and more. It's gotten to the point where I feel like, while Sonic 06 will never be cleansed of its reputation for being the worst Sonic game to the general public, but Forces, I think, has replaced 06 as the worst Sonic game among the fandom. And that may be caused by the generation that grew up with Sonic 06 have now grown up and are willing to defend the game. Like I said, we got amazing projects like the amazing Project 06. Considering Forces is 8 years old, we may see people who grew up with that game actually defend it. Maybe saying it was their childhood game. But yeah, I see people nowadays give Forces a way harder time than 06 nowadays. People saying like 06 is the better game of the two. Now let's see how Forces has been viewed from Sega and Sonic Team themselves. From what I've heard a few years ago, apparently Forces did do good through sales. But recently I found out that the sales for Forces weren't actually ever shared publicly. All we know is that it did really well when it came out on PS Plus back in 2020, which is around the time the first Sonic movie came out, and also the pandemic, where people were stuck at home playing video games. I also want to talk about how Forces has been acknowledged in future projects. Yeah, there's some of the mobile games like the Sonic Forces Speed Battle, which is more well received than the actual main game itself. Okay, but that's not what I want to talk about really. Let's talk about the comics! In case you don't know, the IDW comics first arc essentially acts as an epilogue to Forces, considering that the comics started a few months after Forces came out. The first arc of the comics talk about the aftermath of the war, and spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1... We found out Egghead has lost his memory after the final boss. Metal Sonic turned to his new form and tried to look for him. We get introduced to new characters like Tangle and Whisper. Whisper is an interesting case with her backstory taking place during the war, not to mention her design is based on an avatar design for Forces. Even afterwards, the war is still referenced in the comics. One example being an abandoned area with broken helmets, which highlights the horrifying aspects of the war the game at most barely implies through dialogue. But let's talk about mainline games, cause oh boy! Frontiers and Shadow Generations at this point have been the only mainline games in the franchise to have come since Forces, and it does not brush off Forces. In fact, they embraced what happened during that game. Frontiers did it through story, while Shadow Generations did it through gameplay. In Frontiers' case, they talked about Tails' characterization, because that has not been so well received in the past few games, with Forces being the tipping point with how it seemed like he couldn't do anything with Sonic gone during the war. But in Frontiers, they address it in the form of a character arc.
Their hero didn't show. They're worried something's happened. It's like how I couldn't handle it after Infinite attacked. One wrong turn and I fall apart. Sonic, am I a burden to you? Whenever there's a crisis, I'm either running away or standing on the sidelines. You're always rescuing me when all I do is follow you around.
Hey, who was it who stopped Eggman from blowing up Station Square, huh? And who broke me out of prison, or saved me from the Deadly Six's trap?
And in Shadow Generations' case, we revisit Sunset Heights from Forces, with a well-received level that expands on the original. You can see the borrowed aspects from the original levels from Forces be evolved into something better in Generations. And lastly, Crossworlds, for bringing back the Luminous Forest. I do think this is something about current modern day Sonic, where they can acknowledge the past without making fun of it or joining in on the laughter. Like how they've embraced Sonic 06's reputation and joined in on the laughter, ha ha ha, that game sucked. Now Sonic's past no longer holds him back. He can move on. The past few games have been loved by the fandom, and even people who aren't familiar with Sonic, if Crossworlds is anything to go by. At the end of the day, while Forces wasn't the game that everyone needed, a game that would make the whole community happy, especially after years away, it's definitely a learning experience. To some, this was the point of no return. Some never returned from the war. I enjoyed this game, but I understand the negative impact this game had on the fandom. But I can also see the progress this franchise has made nowadays. We now see a new priority in satisfying the fans, things that never looked brighter for the series. The dread between Forces and the next Medley game is over, but it won't be forgotten. Will something like this happen again? Who knows? But whatever happens to this franchise, I will still be there. But I hope that Sega and Sonic Team will keep cooking in the future. If you have made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I like doing these kinds of videos. I also do a lot of artsy stuff. I like drawing, I like animating, I got animations. You can follow me on social media. I got comics. Yeah. If you're interested, subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Blue Sky or Instagram. Yeah. Thank you for watching. Bye.